Our freedom is a three-dimensional phenomenon. The first is the physical dimension. Physically, you can be enslaved. For thousands of years, man has been sold in the marketplaces, just like any other commodity. Slaves have existed all over the world. They were not given human rights, they were thought of as subhuman. In China, for centuries, the husband had the right to kill his wife without being punished because the wife was his possession. In Chinese law, there was no punishment for the husband if he killed his wife. Much of India still live in slavery, and the Sudras and the untouchables are still not allowed to educated or to change their profession in some parts of India. The second is the psychological dimension. Psychologically, humans are enslaved by many ideologies, religions, traditions, and dogmas. There are very few individuals in the world who are psychologically free. The way we bring up the children is to make them slaves. Slaves of an ideology, slaves of a religion. We teach them about God and we know nothing of God. We teach them about heaven and hell and we know nothing of heaven and hell. We are just conditioning their minds because our minds were conditioned by our parents, and the disease goes on spreading. And the third is the spiritual dimension. The previous two dimensions were related to society and the collective. To quote Sigmund Freud, society and civilization is possible only if people become neurotic in nature. In the history of modern civilization, every movement had happened for societal freedom, which is almost a stupid idea. Because society is just a word, there is no substance in it. Every messiah, every ideology that makes you free becomes your new master. That is the reason why all the social movements in history have brutally failed to change something which doesn't exist. Society does not exist. What they have done is to make people more and more neurotic. What we can't say in public, we have condemned it. What we can't do in public, we have made it a sin. However, personally, everybody wants to do it or say it. Man is in a constant struggle with himself, whether to believe his public personality or his real personality. Because for any society or community to exist, individuals need to be sacrificed. Individuals have died and are dying so that religion could exist. A religion which is not even a real thing. Every religion of a human being is just a bunch of words, without any proof or any real life explanations. So real individuals are dying for unreal words. Individuals are dying so that a nation could exist. Nations which are divided by lines on maps, which doesn't even exist in reality. Imaginary lines were drawn on maps just as we wanted them to be, so that we could have yet another way to enslave ourselves. Individuals are dying every day so that a society could exist. A society which has been built on false morals and stupid traditions which nobody wants to follow. But everyone is ready to die internally for them. Every day you go out and pretend to be someone you are not. Every day you kill a portion of your individuality by conditioning yourself with the thoughts of other people, their rotten ideologies, their stupid pieces of advice, and their mindless rules and principles to live. Freedom at the level of the first two dimensions is not possible. It is a personal process. We feel that now we are physically and psychologically free people, but we always find new ways to enslave ourselves, because the strings of these two dimensions are in the hands of society. True freedom can only exist at the individual level. The family is the source of much of our psychological conditioning. But I wonder, how did the families form in the first place? It is not that it was always there. There was a time when men and women used to meet out of love. There was no marriage, there was no family. Everything belonged to the community, and every child was the responsibility of the community. But then something happened which became the cause of creating the family. It was the rise and growth of the resources. That which belonged to the community, individuals started claiming that it belongs to them. And to make sure that it remains there for them in future as well, they started taking ownership of their children. For their children to grow better than others, there was a need for a dedicated female. There, the humans created the concept of marriage, and we made a woman the part of the property. Now for the man to be sure that the child that was born from his wife is his child, the women had to bear all the plunge of restrictions. Even after that, a man can never be sure, only the woman knows the father of the child. Therefore, every kind of barrier was created against the movement of the women. She was not allowed to come in contact with any other men. Women were not allowed to have a paid career. Women weren't allowed to be educated. Women weren't allowed to show their faces. The only place where a woman was allowed to visit was the place of worship. Religion is and has always been biased towards women. Despite all the restrictions it imposes on them, most importantly, it has not allowed them to hold any positions of power, neither politically, like an important member in the government or a strong voice in the family, nor socially, like to be a priest or the preacher of their religion. Therefore, as a consequence of these restrictions, women tried to exert their power in two different ways. Firstly, they started seeing their offsprings as a potential armor and weapon to attain political power. Second, they started ritualizing religion, and through that, religion became the biggest weapon to exert power in the family as well as in the society. Since the children spent their maximum time with their mother, they became more and more religiously conditioned. And some children have once grown, formed a new society in which religion becomes the prerequisite of becoming a good human being. Society was formed to provide security to families. Security from people outside the society as well as from people inside the society. But because you ask for security, you need to feel insecure all the time. And that is what society does. It develops all kinds of insecurity in you so that it could help you out with its remedies. Society makes you completely dependent on its products, just like a tobacco company. From childhood, it makes you insecure about your appearance, insecure about your body and your color. It shows you how insecure you will be in the future if you won't have a family. It wants you to feel that you will be rejected, ostracized, humiliated, and isolated without a family, and then it offers you its first product, marriage. From childhood, it starts teaching you what is good and what is bad, what is right and what is wrong. If you are a boy behaving like a girl, it is wrong. Vice versa, wrong. If you are not following traditions, it is wrong. And because of these labels, if you do anything wrong or bad as per their code, you develop a pang of guilt inside you. You feel regret all the time, and then the society offers you its second product, religion. And once someone purchases any of the products of society, they start cross-selling you. Like if you bought the marriage, you should have a child. If you bought the religion, you should also start praying and follow rituals. After knowing that you have purchased these products, you become the ideal customer for something much more superior than all of this. And that is political ideologies. Now they start attacking you, since your mind is perfectly conditioned now. You know how to follow orders, you have forgotten how to question anything, and you believe that all of these products are very important to you. Now you are a perfect example of psychological conditioning. Every individual has had more or less the same journey in all the centuries till now. We had made our lives a journey from freedom to total bondage. However, in the last few centuries, something fundamental has happened, which has almost reversed this course of life and offered an opportunity for total freedom. Every kind of tyranny creates a condition for rebellion and revolution. The first principle of exercising power is to make others understand that it is being used for their benefit. It feels like the tyrant cares for you. She is taking very difficult decisions for you, but slowly that decision making goes to another level and she starts making almost all of your decisions. Now it becomes annoying and unbearable. You have become an experiment piece for her. Any experiment she wants to execute, you are a dummy. There are two ways to lose your independence. First is by force and power, and second is by care and decision making. And second is the way of society, family, priests and politicians. A master is dependent on a slave as much as a slave is dependent on the master. This is a very basic technique to attain power. For centuries, we have been trying to become a slave of God so that she becomes dependent on us. A God would never want to be the master. Any individual who is free and independent would never like to have a slave, nor she would be a slave to anybody, even if it is a God. However, this urge to seek freedom and independence is not that easy to experience. It develops gradually. It is something to discover inside you. And for this discovery to happen, one needs to understand her bondage and understand the tyranny and dependency on others. For the freedom to happen, bondage is necessary. Or should I say it differently, your longing for freedom is inevitable since you are in bondage. It is easier to see and understand physical slavery and physical dependence because it's right in your face. You can feel and see your chains attached to your master. And that is why it was obliterated very easily. All it needed was a violent revolution. In the US, France, Russia, and China, people became very violent because they could able to see their goal clear in front of them, which was independence. However, when it comes to mental conditioning, there is no clarity. You can't see your chains, you can't see your slavery, you can't see who is controlling you. In mental conditioning, it requires efforts to find these things. And you can't break them by violence. No violence has any use there. What you need is understanding. If you can understand your behavior and the motivations behind your actions, maybe you can see the chains attached to you. If you can see the influences of your family, society, religion, and politics on any decision you make, then maybe you can see your goal to get freedom from them. But whether you do it consciously or unconsciously, as I said, your natural urge for freedom remains there. And because of this urge, we have come to a point where we are on the edge of becoming free as an individual. In any individual, there is an urge to seek freedom from something. It could be your job, your relationship, your family, or your society. But like I said, it is not that easy. You can't see that you are dependent. However, this urge keeps getting escalated like a collective consciousness. And some of us have a chance to see all of it, all the chains. And few of us could able to make a revolution. And even though it is a non-violent revolution, it causes immense harm to those who are still not free. The root of 90% of our slavery comes from religion. We became free from religion in the 19th century, and though it was a silent revolution, it caused great damage. All those who are hurt couldn't able to free themselves from it. They still can't see it. They are still living in the 19th century. And once the religion was uprooted, the rest were meant to fall. In the early 20th century, families broke and we became nuclear. In the middle of the 20th century, marriages broke and we became an individual. In the late 20th century, societies broke and we became alone. In the 21st century, genders broke and we are finally without any identity. This urge for freedom has taken us a very long way. We have got freedom from many things because gradually we could able to see them. Freedom from oppressors, freedom from exploiters, from religion, from society, from family, from marriage and any identity. Now we are free individuals. But all of this freedom for what?